My name is Lauren Ferguson, 28 years old. From the outside, people always assumed my sister and I were typical siblings, with typical disagreements, petty arguments, eye rolls at the dinner table, competing over clothes or bathroom time. But the truth is, the underlying tension between us was never normal. It was engineered, cultivated, watered and fed by two well-meaning but disastrously misguided parents who believed rivalry built character. They never realized they were lighting matches in a house soaked in gasoline. Growing up, every achievement became a competition. If I got an A, my parents would look at my sister and ask why she couldn't push herself like Lauren. If she excelled at sports, they would comment on how I should get out more instead of reading. Compliments for one were arrows aimed at the other. Approval in our home wasn't about love, it was about points on a scoreboard only my parents understood. And because we were children, desperate to feel like we mattered, we lived and breathed that toxic measurement system. By the time we reached high school, something inside both of us had hardened. We stopped speaking unless absolutely necessary. We avoided eye contact. Mutual silence became our only fragile truce. The house felt calmer that way, even if the air between us stayed bitter and cold. When I left for college, it felt like stepping out of a storm into oxygen. For the first time in my life, I could breathe without waiting for her to snap, or for my parents to hand out another comparison chart disguised as encouragement. I flourished. I made friends, found a career path I loved, and eventually met the man who would become my fiancé. I met him during my junior year. We were friends long before romance arrived. Two people who found comfort in sharing coffee breaks, strange memes, and late-night study sessions. He always made me laugh. 3 years into our friendship, he finally gathered the courage to ask me out, stumbling over his words like a nervous teenager, even though he was usually composed. I remember thinking that if a moment could glow, that one did, and of course I said yes. After graduation, I moved in with him. We were both building careers, building a life, building something solid and warm. I felt proud of him, proud of us, proud of the life I had chosen for myself without any shadows from the past dragging behind me. But shadows always find a way home. I decided to bring him to my parents' house one weekend. They had been asking to meet him, and I thought it would be a simple dinner, awkward maybe, but manageable. What I didn't know was that my sister was also home that weekend. She had just started college, but frequently returned, which my parents told me was because she missed home. I only later learned she had been failing to make new friends, and was quietly spiraling, her insecurity growing like a bruise under the skin. The moment we stepped inside, I felt it, the shift in the room, the subtle pressure in my chest. My sister stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, eyes narrowing like a cat spotting prey. My boyfriend offered her a polite smile, the kind you give a stranger you want to get along with. She returned it with one so sweet, it bordered on parody. I tried not to react. I tried to force the optimism I'd felt earlier, pretending this could be a normal family night. But my sister's tension radiated like a storm warning. Dinner began innocently enough. My boyfriend complimented my mother's cooking. My father asked about his job. My sister sat across from him, twirling her hair, smiling in coy little intervals. At first it was subtle, so subtle I almost convinced myself I imagined it. But then she leaned forward every time he spoke, her voice soft and syrupy, in a way I hadn't heard since high school crush days. She asked questions she had no reason to ask, personal ones about his hobbies, his dreams, his plans with me. He kept glancing at me, uncomfortable. I kept forcing a smile, mortified. My parents. They sat there pretending everything was fine, as they always did. Practiced professionals at ignoring the fire as long as the furniture didn't burn. Then she pushed further. So she said, smiling at him, as if I didn't exist, "Have you ever wondered what your life would look like if you'd met someone different?" I felt my heart stop. He stiffened. "I'm not sure what you mean." "Oh, come on," she laughed lightly. "You're a great guy. You must have options." Her eyes flicked toward me. Better ones, even. That was when something inside me snapped, not violently, but quietly, the way a thread snaps under too much strain. I leaned forward, voice sharp. "Stop. Whatever you think you're doing, just stop. It's disgusting." She raised her brows innocently. "I'm just talking, Lauren. Don't be so sensitive." "Sensitive," I repeated, heat rising to my cheeks. "You're throwing yourself at him." "Please," she scoffed, rolling her eyes. "I'm only trying to help him see he has choices." My boyfriend tensed beside me, cheeks flushed with discomfort. I'm really not interested." "Oh, hush," she interrupted him, dismissive. "That was it. Respect him, I snapped. He's my boyfriend, and you're humiliating yourself. I shouldn't have said the next part not the way I said it, but years of resentment, all the swallowed insults and buried childhood wounds tore out of me at once. You're acting like a jealous loser. Her face changed instantly. Something dark flickered in her eyes, and before I could process what was happening, she lunged across the table, fingers tangled in my hair, nails scraped my cheek. Plates crashed. Chairs toppled. The room dissolved into noise and pain and shock. We hadn't physically fought since we were kids, but this wasn't childish. It wasn't impulsive. It was violent. It was 6 years of resentment erupting all at once. My parents shouted, scrambling to separate us. My boyfriend pulled me backward, arms wrapping around my shaking body, murmuring, "I've got you. I've got you." My hands trembled. My hair was half pulled from my scalp. My skin burned. When it was finally over, I looked at her breathing hard, eyes blazing, shoulders shaking, and realized something. This wasn't just a fight. It was confirmation of something I'd known for years, but had been too afraid to admit. She didn't simply dislike me. She hated me. In that moment, with my boyfriend's hand steadying me, I felt something inside me collapse. A bridge, a bond, a hope that maybe one day we'd grow out of our childhood roles. It was gone. I let my boyfriend drive me home without another word. And as we sat in the quiet of his car, my tears finally spilling, I whispered the only truth I could manage. I'm done. I'm done with her. Because this wasn't a fight. This was the end of us. For weeks after that night, I replayed the fight in my head like a film reel stuck on repeat. The shock of her lunging at me. The sound of plates shattering. My father's voice cracking as he shouted for us to stop. My mother's trembling hands. My boyfriend's grip on my shoulders, gentle and urgent at the same time. The humiliation of crying in his passenger seat as he drove me home. And the worst part, the part that kept me awake at night, was not the violence. It was the certainty. The certainty that something between my sister and me had broken long before that dinner. The fight wasn't the cause. It was the reveal. The next morning, my parents called. My father's voice was tight. My mother's was thin and tired. They said they had spoken to my sister. They didn't say disciplined, didn't say held accountable, didn't say asked her why she did something so vicious. Just spoken to. Then they asked me to forgive her. Just like that. Like forgiveness was an errand. Like healing could be ordered on demand. Like I hadn't spent my entire childhood drowning in comparisons they designed. I told them no. Calmly, firmly, without raising my voice. And even though my mother sighed, as if I were being dramatic, and my father accused me of clinging to grudges, I didn't budge. I don't want a relationship with her anymore, I said. I'm done. They argued, they rationalized, they minimized. I hung up. I wish I could say things got better after that. But they didn't. They simply settled into silence. For 6 years, my sister and I became ghosts in each other's worlds. She lived her life. I lived mine. Our paths crossed only during holidays, where we pretended the other didn't exist, moving like two magnets forced into the same small room but repelled by an invisible wall. At Christmas dinners, she stayed on one side of the living room, scrolling on her phone. I stayed near the kitchen, helping my mom set the table. If we accidentally made eye contact, we looked away. Everyone else in the family noticed something was wrong, but my parents brushed it off as sibling drama. No one knew about the fight. No one knew about the hair. Pulling the insults, the blood under my fingernails. No one knew about the humiliation I swallowed for years. I kept the truth tucked deep inside me, not to protect her, but to protect myself from reliving it. Meanwhile, my life moved forward. My career stabilized. My relationship blossomed. I learned to live without the constant heaviness of her shadow. And as strange as it sounds, avoiding her felt peaceful. But peace is always temporary in a family like mine. When my fiancé proposed, I cried so hard he began laughing through his own tears, holding my hands as if we were standing on the edge of something sacred. We told our families. Everyone was thrilled. My parents seemed genuinely happy, at least until the bridal shower invitation went out. I wanted the celebration small, intimate, only close friends, bridesmaids, and the people who had supported me through adulthood. My fiancé was there too because neither of us cared about the old rules that said bridal showers were women only. I wanted him included in every part of my life. The decor was soft and elegant, a warm room filled with fairy lights, pale pink flowers, matching ribbons, soft music. It should have been perfect. For the first hour it was. My maid of honor kept me laughing. My friends teased me about the wedding dance we were planning. My aunts hugged me so tight my ribs felt bruised. My fiancé stood across the room smiling like he couldn't believe he was marrying me. For once, I felt celebrated without being compared to anyone. Until the door opened. The room fell silent so suddenly the air felt sliced in half. My parents walked in, and between them, looking equally stunned, to see me standing there with a champagne glass in my hand, was my sister. For a moment, everything froze, my breath, my heartbeat, my thoughts. My sister looked uncomfortable, as if realizing too late she'd been tricked into attending. My mother maintained an encouraging smile, but her eyes darted between us anxiously. My father's jaw squared, bracing himself as if preparing for a battle he believed he could control. I set my champagne down slowly, like I was lowering a weapon. "What is she doing here?" I asked, my voice quiet but firm. My parents exchanged a look. Then my mother stepped forward. "Honey, it's been 6 years. You're both older now, wiser. We want you two to make amends." My sister opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She looked cornered like a trapped animal, realizing too late that the door behind her had closed. My father added, "This is a special day. Let's put the past behind us." Put the past behind us. The past that they helped build. The past that almost tore a piece of my scalp out. The past they never wanted to acknowledge because acknowledging it meant admitting they failed to protect me. I inhaled through my nose, holding on to my dignity with both hands. "You had no right," I said. "Not today." My mother's smile trembled. "We're just trying to fix things." "Fix," I repeated. "Nothing has been fixed." She hasn't apologized. She hasn't acknowledged anything. I refuse to pretend in front of everyone here. The room was dead silent, all eyes shifting between us. My father frowned. "She was young. You both were." "No," I cut him off. "Stop minimizing. Stop pretending it wasn't serious. She attacked me. She humiliated me. She tried to take someone she knew I cared about, and she did it in front of my face. And for 6 years she hasn't said a word." My sister flinched. "Lauren," my mother whispered, "this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time," I countered, turning to the room. "Because clearly none of you understand why I chose to cut her out. So let me tell you." And I recounted everything. The flirting, the comments, the provocation, the physical attack. Every detail spilled out, not to embarrass her, but because my parents had shoved me into a corner, and the only way out was honesty. By the end, I could hear guests whispering. My fiancé stood behind me, placing a hand on my back, grounding me. My maid of honor stepped closer, as if ready to grab me if I wavered. My sister's cheeks were wet, though I couldn't tell whether from shock, shame, or anger. "I'm not interested in rekindling anything," I finished softly. "Not today, not ever. Please leave." My father's face reddened. "You're being unreasonable." My sister whispered, "I didn't know they were bringing me. I didn't want—" But I shook my head. It didn't matter. Not then. She stepped back, shoulders shaking, then turned and walked out quickly. My mother hurried after her. My father lingered, glaring at me, as though I had ruined the event, not them. Then he left too. The door closed behind them with a sound that felt final. I stood there trembling, breathing in uneven bursts. My fiancé wrapped an arm around me. My maid of honor squeezed my hand. My friends circled closer, protective and quiet. And slowly, carefully, the room returned to life as if everyone collectively decided to give me a moment to breathe before helping me feel normal again. But nothing about my family would ever feel normal again. The morning after the bridal shower, the world felt strangely quiet. Not peaceful, just eerily still, like the air between a lightning flash and the rumble of thunder. My phone sat on the nightstand face down, vibrating every few minutes as messages piled in from guests, checking on me, my maid of honor, sending heart emojis, and my fiancé texting from work to say he loved me. But my parents, nothing. Not a single word of apology. Not a single attempt to understand. I should have known the silence wouldn't last. Around 10 a.m., my phone rang. The caller ID flashed Mom. I let it ring out. She called again and again. By the fourth call, anxiety coiled in my stomach. I picked up not because I wanted to, but because I was tired of the endless buzzing. The second I answered, she didn't even greet me. "Lauren, you need to talk to your aunt, immediately." Her voice was sharp, frantic, breathless, like she'd been pacing. "Why?" I asked cautiously. "You know why she snapped. Because your sister lost her job offer, the one your aunt promised her. And it's because of what you said at that bridal shower." I stared at the wall, stunned into silence. "My aunt took away her job," I repeated slowly. "Yes," my mother practically shouted. "She revoked it after hearing your story. She thinks your sister is unstable now. And guess who gave her that idea?" So this wasn't a concern call. This wasn't about healing. This wasn't about understanding the pain I'd carried for years. This was blame, pure, unfiltered blame. Mom, I said, trying to stay calm, I simply told the truth. And my aunt is allowed to choose the right person for the job. That's her business, not ours. My mother scoffed. Oh, don't start with that moral high ground nonsense. You know your aunt listened to you because she favors you. She always has. You didn't have to humiliate your sister. You didn't have to say all those things in front of everyone. An ugly laugh escaped me. You brought her there. You created that scene. You could have controlled yourself, she said, her tone dripping with disappointment. You could have acted mature. Mature. I repeated, my voice shaking. Mom, she attacked me. She flirted with my boyfriend while I watched. She pulled my hair. You never once took responsibility for encouraging us to tear each other down. And now you expect me to clean up your mess. My mother didn't skip a beat. This isn't about the past anymore. This is about her future. She's been unemployed for months. She needs that job. And now your aunt thinks she's violent because of you. She is violent, I whispered. She attacked me. There was a long silence. Then, with chilling softness, my mother said, You never give anyone a second chance, do you? I closed my eyes, the words stabbing deeper than I expected. That's not fair. It is fair, she insisted. You held on to this for 6 years. You waited for a moment to hurt her. You chose your bridal shower where you knew everyone would take your side. I wasn't plotting anything, I shouted, finally losing the calm I'd fought so hard for. I didn't want her there. I didn't plan to tell the story. You forced it out of me. She inhaled sharply. You're so dramatic. You always assume we're against you. You always turn yourself into the victim. The word victim hit me like a slap. For a moment, all I heard was my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then I said it, I'm done with this conversation. And I hung up. My hands were trembling so violently I had to set the phone down. I blocked both my parents. Not out of spite, not out of anger. Out of survival. I needed space. I needed clarity. I needed to breathe without their voices crushing my chest. The rest of the day felt like wandering through fog. My fiancé made me tea. When he got home, sat with me on the couch and didn't press for details. He just wrapped me in a blanket and held me until my breathing steadied. When I finally told him about the call, he sighed deeply, kissing my forehead. They don't see you, he said softly. Not really. I nodded, tears burning my eyes. Later that evening, as we prepared dinner side by side, I kept replaying my mother's words. You waited for a moment to hurt her. You always turn yourself into the victim. You could have been mature. I hated how easily her voice slid under my skin, how easily it revived old wounds I thought had healed. Because the truth was, for years, I had wondered whether I was overreacting, whether I should have forgiven my sister, whether the fight really was as bad as I remembered. Trauma has a way of eroding your confidence like acid. But every time I doubted myself, I saw flashes of that night, her hand tangled in my hair, her spiteful smile, the sting of humiliation. I didn't make that up. I didn't imagine it. I didn't deserve any of it. Yet somehow my parents still found a way to blame me. The next morning I woke up with a sense of emotional bruising, as if I'd been punched in dreams I couldn't remember. I made coffee, opened the blinds, and tried to force normalcy into my system. I was barely 2 sips into my mug when I heard a knock on the door. Not a soft knock, not a hesitant knock. A firm, insistent pounding. I froze. My fiancé looked up from tying his shoes. Expecting someone. No, I whispered. The pounding continued. We exchanged a look, one that said everything without a single word. He walked to the peephole, then exhaled sharply. It's your parents. Of course it was. Of course they couldn't accept being blocked. Of course they couldn't give me space. Of course they had to show up physically, inserting themselves into my boundary, because they couldn't handle the idea that I had finally stood up for myself. I didn't want to open the door. I didn't want to see their faces. I didn't want another fight. Should we ignore them? My fiancé asked quietly. I don't know, I whispered. If we don't answer, they'll just keep coming back. He nodded reluctantly. Another round of pounding. Lauren, my father's voice boomed. We know you're in there. The sound made my chest tighten. I felt 9 years old again, bracing for criticism, for disappointment, for another lecture about how I had misinterpreted reality. We should let them in, my fiancé finally said gently. Hear them out, then we can ask them to leave. I swallowed hard. He was right. They wouldn't go away until they felt they'd handled the situation. So I opened the door. The moment they stepped inside, I saw it, the disappointment, the frustration, the certainty that they were the ones wronged. Before I could even speak, my father said, Your sister is devastated, and you need to fix this. But what none of us knew, not even me, was that this confrontation would unravel everything. Because behind them, stepping slowly into view, eyes red and swollen, And it was my sister. And for the first time in 6 years, she spoke to me. My sister stood just behind our parents, half shadowed by the doorway. Her hands clasped tightly in front of her, like she was physically holding herself together. Her eyes were red, not the kind of red that comes from a single tear or a brief cry, but the raw, swollen kind that only forms after hours of breaking down. For a moment, the entire world seemed to pause. The same woman who once smirked while flirting with my boyfriend. The same woman who dragged me across a dinner table. The same woman who avoided my gaze for 6 years. Now looked like she could barely remain standing. I felt my breath catch in my throat. I didn't know what to feel: anger, fear, disbelief, bitterness, curiosity. Every emotion tangled into a knot that made it hard to speak. My fiancé stood close behind me, his hand at my back, silent support radiating from him. Without him, I think I would have shut the door out of pure panic. My father was the first to break the silence. "Lauren, we're not here to fight." His voice was rigid, like he was reciting a line he didn't quite believe. "Your sister has something to say." My mother nudged her gently forward. "Go on, dear." My sister inhaled shakily. "Lauren, can we talk?" Her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it, strained fragile. The opposite of the sharp, mocking tone she used the last time we had exchanged real words. Still, my chest tightened with caution. I wasn't ready to believe this wasn't manipulation. Before I could answer, my father stepped in, irritation creeping into his tone. "Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Just listen to her apologize so we can move forward." "That did it!" My head snapped toward him. "That's not how apologies work," I said coldly. "You don't drag someone to their doorstep and demand forgiveness like a homework assignment." My mother bristled. "Lauren." "No," I interrupted. "This wasn't your idea, was it?" My sister's eyes flickered with shame. She gave the smallest shake of her head. "No, I didn't plan to come here," she swallowed. "I told them not to, but they said if I didn't apologize now, I'd lose the chance." I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. Of course, my parents didn't come out of empathy. They came out of urgency panic that their carefully crafted image or expectations might crumble. I stepped aside stiffly to let them into the living room. My fiancé followed quietly, watching everything with a protective calm. We all sat, though my sister remained standing for a moment before sinking slowly into a chair across from me. She stared at her hands, twisting them together. Then, with visible effort, she began. "Lauren," she whispered, "I am so unbelievably sorry for everything I did to you." I blinked. Not because of the words, but because of the way she said them. Slowly, deliberately, painfully, like each syllable scraped her throat on the way out. "I've wanted to say this for a long time," she continued, voice trembling. "Years, actually. But every time I tried to reach out, I froze, or convinced myself it wouldn't matter, or that you didn't want to hear from me." I opened my mouth, then closed it, unsure what to say. She kept going. "I was jealous of you, Lauren, my whole life. I felt like every room we walked into, you were already 20 steps ahead of me. I felt smaller next to you, invisible. And instead of dealing with it like a mature person, I weaponized it." A tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't bother wiping it. "When you brought him home, your boyfriend, I saw everything I wished I had. A partner who admired you, a career you were proud of, a future you were building for yourself." She winced, and I was stuck. I hated where I was. I hated myself. And it was easier to hate you too. My mother shifted uneasily, as if hearing her daughter admit these truths made her deeply uncomfortable. My father stared at the wall, jaw clenched. My sister looked up at me then, really looked. Her eyes were glassy, but clear. "I didn't flirt with him because I wanted him," she whispered. "I flirted with him because I wanted to hurt you. Because hurting you made me feel less worthless." A cold chill ran down my spine. She exhaled shakily. "And when you called me a loser," she paused, voice catching. "I lost control. I'm not saying you were wrong. I'm not saying you provoked me. I'm saying I wasn't in my right mind. I wasn't strong enough to deal with what I'd become." My fiancé moved his hand into mine, squeezing gently. My sister wiped her face and continued. "Over the past 6 years, I thought about apologizing 1,000 times. But then I'd remember how awful I was to you. Not just that night, our whole lives. I rejected every attempt you made to be my friend. I shut you out because I thought I needed to win. But there was nothing to win." Her voice broke completely. "We could have been friends. We could have been sisters." She covered her face with her hands, and I threw that away. My mother reached toward her, but she brushed her off. "When the job fell through," she said quietly, "I realized how much of my life I'd wasted. I realized none of this would have happened if I had apologized sooner. I don't blame you for telling the truth at your bridal shower. You deserve to tell it. She looked at me again, eyes full of pain. I know you don't trust me. You have no reason to. And I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just needed to finally say I'm sorry. Properly. Without excuses. Without minimizing anything. She took a deep breath. And whether you forgive me today, or in 10 years, or never, I won't hold it against you. You don't owe me anything. When she finished, the room was silent. My parents were stunned, not by her apology, but by the fact that it wasn't engineered for their convenience. It was raw, messy, human. I felt tears rising unexpected and unwelcome. My sister looked down. I'll go. I've said what I came to say. She stood slowly, and something inside me cracked, not open, but ajar. Wait, I whispered. She paused. I need time, I said honestly, but thank you for saying everything you said. It mattered. My sister nodded, tears falling freely, then quietly walked to the door. She didn't look back. My parents lingered, expecting gratitude. Instead, I turned to them with steady eyes. She apologized without being forced, I said. You should try it sometime. Their faces hardened, but I didn't care. My sister stepped outside, and for the first time in 6 years, I didn't feel hatred. I didn't feel rage. I felt grief for what we lost, and something faint, almost imperceptible like sunlight trying to break through clouds. A beginning. For days after my sister's apology, the air in our apartment felt heavier. Not in a suffocating way, but in the way the sky feels just before dawn, where the darkness begins to thin, but the light hasn't fully arrived yet. I found myself replaying her words over and over, hearing the tremor in her voice, remembering the way her shoulders shook when she said she didn't expect forgiveness. I wasn't used to seeing her like that, unguarded, stripped of pride, trembling with sincerity instead of hostility. My fiancé noticed the shift in me. You're quieter, he said one night as we washed dishes together. Just thinking, I murmured, running my finger along a soap bubble until it popped. He leaned against the counter, drying his hands. About her, I nodded. He gave me a small, understanding smile. Whatever you decide, I'm behind you. If you want to forgive her, I support it. If you don't, I support that too. I don't know what I want, I admitted. Part of me feels like I should keep her out of my life forever. But another part, I don't know. I keep thinking about what she said, about how we could have been friends. He stepped closer and lifted my chin gently so I would look at him. It's okay to take your time. Healing doesn't run on a deadline. Healing. The word lingered in my chest long after he walked away to fold laundry. Healing wasn't something I had ever associated with family not growing up, not in the years since, not even after the apology. I had spent so long trying to survive the emotional minefield my family created that the idea of mending anything felt foreign. But now I wondered whether the wound between my sister and me had scarred enough for something new to grow around it. The next few days were quiet. No calls, no surprise visits, no angry messages. It was the first time in years that silence felt peaceful rather than ominous. Then one evening, as I was choosing shoes for the wedding rehearsal, my phone buzzed with a notification. A message from my sister. My heart thudded. It wasn't a wall of text, just a few sentences. I meant what I said the other day. I'm not expecting anything from you. I just hope your wedding day is everything you deserve. If you want me there, I'll be there. If not, I understand. I stared at the message for long moments, the words swimming gently on the screen. My fiancé, noticing my stillness, walked over and looked at the phone. What do you want to do? He asked softly. I don't know, I whispered. But she didn't pressure me. She didn't guilt me. She didn't make it about herself. She just gave me a choice. Then choose what feels right, he said, pressing a kiss to my temple and leaving me alone to think. I sat there for almost an hour staring at the message. Finally, I typed back, I want you there, and I accept your apology. My hands trembled as I hit send, not out of fear, but out of the strange, delicate hope that maybe, just maybe, we were stepping out of the shadows of our childhood and into something softer. Her reply came almost instantly. Thank you. 2 words. Simple, heavy, real. The wedding day. The day of the wedding arrived like something out of a dream. Soft sunlight, cool breeze, the faint smell of flowers drifting through the venue. Everything was exactly how I envisioned it, elegant, warm, intimate, filled with people who loved us deeply. My fiancé looked devastatingly handsome in his suit, and when he smiled at me before the ceremony, I felt my heart expand in a way I didn't know was possible. But there was a knot in my stomach, a quiet anticipation tied to the knowledge that my sister might be there. I didn't tell her where to sit. I didn't assign her a role. I didn't know what to expect. I was adjusting my veil when my maid of honor peeked into the bridal suite. "She's here," she whispered with a soft smile. I turned slowly, and there she was, standing a few feet behind my bridesmaids, wearing a simple but beautiful dress, hands clasped nervously. Her eyes glistened with emotion the moment she saw me. I felt something loosen in my chest, a release of tension I had carried for so long that I no longer recognized myself without it. "You look beautiful," she said quietly. "So do you?" I replied, surprising myself with how sincere my voice sounded. We didn't hug. We didn't cry in each other's arms. We just looked at one another. Two women who had spent their entire lives believing they were enemies, realizing in that moment that they never had to be. She took her seat, and I took my place at the aisle. As I walked toward the man I loved, I caught a glimpse of her wiping a tear from her cheek. And for the first time since childhood, it didn't sting. It didn't confuse me. It didn't make me tense. It made me feel whole. The email from my parents. Of course, the universe couldn't give me one perfect day without at least one final twist. My parents didn't show up. I expected that. But what I didn't expect was the email they sent the night before. My mother composed it, but my father had clearly influenced the tone. It said they had decided not to be part of an environment where they felt demonized, claiming that my sister and I were rewriting history to make them look like bad parents. They insisted they needed time apart from us to heal from the emotional harm we had supposedly caused. At the end, they added that they hoped we would learn gratitude someday. I didn't even bother responding. My fiancé read the email, sighed deeply, and wrapped his arm around me. "Block them for tonight," he whispered. "Give yourself one day of peace." I did. And my wedding day was everything I dreamed it would be. After the ceremony, during the reception, my sister approached me again. This time she smiled, small, unsure, hopeful. "Thank you for letting me be here," she said. "I'm glad you came," I replied. We talked a little, just enough to feel familiar, but not enough to feel overwhelming. It was the gentle beginning of something new. As she walked away to join some cousins on the dance floor, I felt my throat tighten, not with sadness, but with relief. For so long, I believed the story of my life was defined by rivalry, pain, betrayal, silence. But standing there in my wedding gown, surrounded by people who cherished me, watching my sister laugh quietly with family, I realized something. I finally felt free. Free from the competition. Free from the bitterness. Free from the childhood roles we were forced into. Free from the parents who refused to grow. My sister and I couldn't rewrite our past, but we could rewrite the future. And that was enough. My fiancé, now my husband, pulled me into a dance, holding me close. "Life has never been better," he whispered. He was right. And as we swayed under the warm lights, I let myself believe that the wounds of the past didn't define me anymore. I was building a new family now, a family grounded in love, honesty, and choice. And for the first time in my life, I chose peace.